Peoples gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh, Lord, yeah.
The U.S. expels 12 Russian diplomats from the UN, from the U.S. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that and where that goes. Kharkiv has been shelled and assaulted as the Belarusian talks appear to have failed. So we'll see what's happening with that and what's happening or what's going on with the war effort over there. The Senate comes together to try to vote on a bill to codify Roe v. Wade, and it fails, with Manchin joining Republicans to block it. And Alabama tries to recall and get back a license plate that says LGB FJB. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. How interesting that we get to listen to music that was written about a movie about a guy manipulating a war from the background while claiming that he has no part in it and getting the people who support him to claim that he has no part in it. It's funny how this all works out here and the things that we listen to, not only from the great Ozzy Osbourne, but music by and inspired by the great John Williams. So we've got a lot to go over here today. Of course, it's blowing up again, so we'll see what we can get to off of this. I really want to get down to the Senate bill, but, you know, the Ukraine is on fire, so it's a day that ends in Y, with a globalist and establishment politician in the presidency. So, hey, we're at war right now, and we need to go back and talk about it. And with the social media campaign, we're at war, and nobody can agree as to what side we're supposed to be on. This isn't like flying a plane into a building in the early 2000s, when literally all that we had was the word of CNN, NBC, and the likes. I mean, we're actually sitting down discussing this and able to actually get images from off the ground, too. So I don't know what's actually going on there. I will report what the mainstream media is breathlessly going on about and talk about some of the things that, you know, don't seem like they're realistic or not, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you either. So that's what we see coming off of this. Let's get into it. Let's get down into the news. Let's see how long I can stay awake, because I did that funny thing again where I overcaffeinated myself yesterday, and I did sleep some last night. I didn't go all night without sleeping, but I'm sitting there staring at the ceiling again at 3 o'clock in the morning. Why am I still awake? But enough about what's happening with me. Let's talk about what's happening with the world. And we are going to start with the website, of course, even though it's the start page, because that's where we always start there. So go check out the start page for turnsofpagesproductions.com. Turns of Pages Productions, once we get started, will be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We will carry great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, returning to the air today, so go and check that out. Also, Porch Boys, which unfortunately I will be broadcasting at the same time as they are. We might do a little bit of crossover. I might run in and see if I can't jump in to their conversation, but we'll check that out. We'll see what's going on with that. But we're also, Katie and I are also broadcasting tonight for the State of the Union. Live commentary and everything else that goes along with that. So we will see what's happening with that, and we will come back and join in for that. Also check out a new upcoming project with Britt Salt and Sean Hickman. The Breakdown with Birkenhoff and the R-Rated Conservative. Go check out all of those programs. They are all great friends to Liberty. And a new program will be coming at launch, but we've got to get ourselves launched first. And with getting launched, again, the public will not be made aware of this just yet until I get in contact with Give, Send, Go to get my government name script off the front. But at this point, we do have a fundraiser out there for those of you who are in the know, who already know what my government name is. You can go check that out. That is going to be givesendgo.com/turnsofpages101. Go check that out. And if you can, even a $5 bill will help out for that. So help us out. Have a look at what it is that we're doing over here, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to build here, and help us get it launched so we can make sure Bobby Joe gets paid and help you guys get news by the common man for the common man. Let's see what our finance looks like today. Looking at the Dow tried. And I think that there was some honk going on with there too, because they really don't want to see the Dow drop and crash right now. The way that the ruble is and the way that the Russian markets are. It dropped off initially at the beginning during the Belarusian talks. It tried to climb back out through about the middle of the day and then dropped again and then tried to climb right at the end. And the futures are looking like they're on the downward trend again off of this. Ending the day at 33,892.60, down 166.15 points, or just about 0.5% down. Honk. We'll see what happens with that. Looking in at Bitcoin. Overnight, the Bitcoin has actually been quite a bit on the rise right now. And I do have to wonder if some of that has to do with the activity of the ruble and attempting to both buoy up the finances of the Ukraine and the finances of Russia as well. But the Bitcoin is now to $44,512 and 50 US cents. Over the course of 24 hours, that is up $1,313 and 90 US cents, or about 3%. Day over day. So that's not a bad jump, especially since we were looking at 37,000 yesterday. So we will see what happens with that. Looking in at the scrap metal prices on the national average, copper is up, steel is down, and aluminum is up. Looking at the individual plays, bare bright copper wire is up, copper tubing is down, flashing copper is up, number 2 tubing is down, insulated copper wire is down, THHN wire is down. Romex is up, brass shells are down, steel, also mixed, conduit steel is down, light iron is down, number 1 steel is down, cast iron is up, rotors are up, complete car is down, shreddable steel is up, stainless is down, aluminum, also mixed, siding is up, copper fin radiators with aluminum are up, radiators regular without copper fin are down, aluminum cans are up, sheet aluminum is down, which is weird because aluminum cans are literally sheet aluminum, but regardless, sheet aluminum is down, aluminum rims are up. Looking at your individual plays, electric motors are down, ballasts are down, lead is up, batteries are up. Catalytic converters remain with small foreign cats and small GM cats both up, but large foreign cats, regular domestic cats, and large GM cats are all down. Compressors are down, alternators are down, carbide is up, hard drives are down, motherboards are up, power supplies, low-grade boards, and PC towers are down. Remember, these are national averages. Your individual prices in your individual markets may vary based on demand, but go and check out and see if there's anything that you need to come back and recycle. Make sure you get paid if you're going to, especially with metal. They need the metal. So bring it in, go check it out what it is. Don't just toss it in the recycling bin and let the city pick it up. bring it over there. See what you can get. And that's what we see off of that. Let's see what IBD had to say for the morning. Dow futures slide as Russia hammers Ukraine. Oil prices surge above $100 a barrel. There again. What did I tell you? 2 weeks ago. Was it 1 week ago or 2 weeks? I think it was 1 week ago. But a week ago I said, after this, I'm going to work, and as soon as I'm done with work, I'm going to go fill my truck. And I don't usually when I'm in town, unless I go to a specific Shell where I get usually 100 more miles out of a tank, but gas is going to start skyrocketing right now. Go and get fuel right now as much as you can, and get as much of it at the lower price as you can because, well, it did exactly what I said it was going to. But let's see what they have to say here. Dow futures were sharply lower Tuesday as Russian troops closed on Kiev. Treasury yields tumbled for a second straight day, while U.S. oil prices surged back above $100 a barrel. Target and AutoZone ran atop the S&P 500 after reporting fourth quarter results. Dow, tech titan Apple, and cybersecurity leader Palo Alto Networks are among those in or nearby zones. Meanwhile, Tesla made a bullish move Monday, retaking its long-term 200-day line, but Tesla remains far from its old highs. After the close on Monday, Lucid Motors, Zoom Video Communications were among the companies reporting their quarterly results. Lucid plunged more than 13% early, which is funny because as the IPO, Lucid and Rivian were both up, but I guess nobody can compete with Tesla right now, which is weird because they need competition. While Zoom stock briefly dove late Monday before slashing losses, early Tuesday, Target soared more than 15% despite a mixed fourth quarter earnings report. Yeah, but all the trials are finally done in Minneapolis, so they don't have to worry about rioting over there again. Among the Dow leaders, Apple dropped 0.8% and Microsoft traded down 0.6% in today's stock market. American Express, a Dow Jones stock to watch, is back in a buy range. Electric vehicle leader Tesla declined 0.7% pre-market Tuesday, threatening to give back a part of Monday's 7% surge. Amid a volatile, headline-driven market, commercial metals, Northern Oil and Gas, Palo Alto, and Ryan Specialty are among Tuesday's top stocks to watch. Keep in mind that current stock market conditions should keep investors in cash and on the sidelines. Which is really weird to hear coming from IBD with a Democrat in office because right now they should be screaming, buy, buy, buy. We have to hold that Dow up. We can't let it look like the stock market is crashing right now. Microsoft and Tesla are IBD leaderboard stocks. Commercial metals was featured in this week's Stocks Near a Buy Zone column. Ryan Specialty is an IPO leader. Dow Jones today, Russian invasion. We'll be talking about that separately, obviously. Ahead of the first stock market open for March, Dow futures traded down 0.8%, while the S&P futures dropped 0.85%, and NASDAQ futures descended 0.9% in morning trade. Among ETFs, the NASDAQ 100 tracker Invesco QQQ Trust lost 0.7%, and the SPDR S&P 500 ETF declined 0.7% before Tuesday's open. The 10-year Treasury yield ticked down to 1.75% Tuesday morning as investors piled back into bonds and other safe haven instruments. On Monday, the 10-year Treasury yield closed at 1.84%, tumbling from Friday's close above 1.9%. Meanwhile, oil prices surged more than 5% Tuesday, probably along with gas prices. Go check your local station, with West Texas Intermediate crude trading above 101 a barrel. And West Texas, at least over the past few weeks, has usually been just below what Brent crude is. Early Tuesday, Russian forces bombarded Kharkiv. We'll talk about that later on. So with that, they don't have the usual warning here, but I will remind you, remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Let's see what Seeking Alpha has to say. Seeking Alpha, NASDAQ reverses early slide to end higher, S&P 500, Dow Jones trim losses. From Liz Kiesh. Excuse me. After 2 days of gains, stocks posted a mixed performance on Monday as investors assess the current situation in the Ukraine. The choppy session took place as Russian leader Vladimir Putin put his country's nuclear capabilities on high alert after Western nations moved to further limit Russia's access to global finance. In other developments on the crisis, Russia and Ukraine started negotiations at the Ukraine-Belarus border. That went well, apparently. Meanwhile, investors also tried to deduce how the conflict in Europe will impact the Federal Reserve's plan for raising interest rates. Wouldn't that be funny if that just went the fuck out the window? Oh, well, we might not be able to keep up. We got to keep that monetary policy low so we can keep printing money out and make sure we can give aid everywhere. We can't. Oh my God. We can't raise the interest rates. What do we do? Which might save them coming into the midterms. Now, of course, they're going to continue to inflate their way out of everything, and your wages will continue to go down if that's the way that they go with it. I'm not saying that's going to be the way that they go with it, but if that winds up being the way that they go with it, that may be what they use to justify it, is that they can't raise the interest rates right now because they need to go help everybody. They need to go out and give the aid. But raising the interest rates, as a lot of people have pointed out, I mean, I was sitting there licking my chops, waiting for the end of the year to go snap up some cheap property right now, at the end of this, because, well, stuff is going to start selling for pennies on the dollar. If the interest rates go up and people can't afford to stay in their homes anymore and people can't afford to buy, that would be a nice big crash to the market if they do go back and do that. But hey, now they have an excuse not to. So that's something we need to come back and watch. I'm really glad Seeking Alpha pointed that out. The Dow ended the lowest in the major indices, down 0.5%. The S&P finished 0.3% lower, and the Nasdaq rallied back above the flat line late in the session, ending 0.4% higher, showing a decline of about 1% early in the day. Of the 11 sectors in the S&P, 6 finished lower, led by nearly 1.8% slide in real estate. Energy was the best performer, rising about 2.5%. Both the 10-year and the 2-year yields came down during the day as some investors looked for safe havens amid the geopolitical uncertainty. The 2-year yield slipped about 14 basis points to 1.45%. The 10-year now sits at about 1.83%, a decline of 15 basis points on the day. So there's some stuff moving. There's some stuff that's actually looking good right now. We will see what's happening with this and where this goes. Let's get into the big news of the day, and we are going to start with a tweet reminding you, and I don't have any articles to go back with this, but again, I don't really care for him or anything that he stands for right now, and I am questioning at some point whether some of this is a setup, but according to Cassandra McDonald, blue check marked, of course, because she's the editor-in-chief for Timcast, but Timcast got swatted live on air for a third time, allegedly last night. I've not seen the footage. I will be looking in for the footage and seeing what's happening with this. And, you know, there are people here that are questioning, like, you would think that the SWAT team would see a pattern by now, or how is he not on a list yet, or why are they not coming out here and saying, oh, this keeps happening over here. Do keep in mind that police in a local region, other than, as Ron says, being bagmen for the state, do have a duty to respond if there is a question of safety of this. Now, they're probably not running in their guns blazing anymore, now that this being the third time on the same property, but they still have to go in there and check it out, with at least a hand on the gun to make sure that this isn't the real one this time. But, yeah, as far as that is, and even if I don't like his news or the way that he does things, I don't want to see the dude get hurt. And he does have a bunch of other people working for him other than him. I don't want to see any of them get hurt. So I don't want to see a bunch of cops from the local Maryland area coming out in there with guns blazing and, you know, don't move, and if you move, we shoot, and then somebody happens to move. I don't want to see any of that shit. I don't care how much of a difference of opinion I have with anybody. I don't want to see anybody have to go down with that. So, that's what they say happened over there. Again, have not seen footage. This is just coming from the editor right now, but let's keep going here. Also, Before we get into the stuff from Kyiv, Biden returns to White House after a weekend in Delaware, ignores questions about possible nuclear threat. From Virginia Kruta, President Brandon turned his back on reporters, ignoring shouted questions about Russia's ongoing invasion of the Ukraine and threats leveled against any nation that would dare provide assistance, as he walked alone from Marine One to the White House. President Biden arrives back at the White House after spending the weekend in Delaware. Biden did not stop to answer questions from reporters about the conflict in Eastern Europe. The Hill tweeted along with a video of the president as he crossed the White House lawn, appearing to not even acknowledge. The press gathered a short distance away as they shouted their questions at him. Let's see what that looked like.
Mr. President, is Ukraine winning the war?
President, you believe Putin would use a nuclear weapon?
Mr. President, are you worried about nuclear war?
Now, I don't usually do a zoom on stuff that we're doing here, but I do want to see, because it looks like there's something in his ear. I don't know if that's his hearing aid, and he has to turn it off, or if he's got earplugs in. And again, I mean, I'm not trying to make fun of the guy for being old, but at some point, it happens. And he's been around probably helicopters and stuff, and shouting on the Senate floor for most of his life. Is that a hearing aid in his ear, though? What is that? I don't know. I'm trying to look at it on a 24-inch monitor and a low-res expansion of the picture, and I can't see it.
Worried about nuclear war?
Turn your hearing aid on, Grandpa! Isn't it usually a Marine that's standing out there and doing that too, by the way? Maybe I have that one mistaken. I'm not sure. So, there he is. 81 million votes. 10 scoops of ice cream. More votes than any president in history, right there. And the post-millennial going on and asking what the red-haired bobblehead has to say about the nuclear weapons, because, I mean, they can't ask President Brandon. Let's hear what she had to say.
In light of President Putin putting Russia's nuclear forces into special combat readiness, has the United States changed its nuclear posture?
Well, let me first start by saying that throughout the crisis, Russia and President Putin have falsely alleged that it is under threat, including from Ukraine, including from NATO. Neither the United States nor NATO has any desire or intention for conflict with Russia. And we think provocative rhetoric like this regarding nuclear weapons is dangerous, adds to the risk of miscalculation, should be avoided, and will not indulge in it. We are assessing President Putin's directive, and at this time we see no reason to change our own alert levels. But it's also important to remember that even over the course of the last several months and years, when we have had significant disagreements with Russia over a range of issues, Russia and the United States have long agreed that nuclear use would have devastating consequences, and have stated many times, including earlier this year, that a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. So we have not had seen reasons to change our alert levels, and we are see obvious significant danger in escalatory rhetoric.
Can I ask,
No, we've got another nation with a bigger stockpile than ours that is threatening nuclear response if anybody comes in and helps a nation that probably really didn't want to get invaded, but no, there's no reason to worry. Just stop asking questions. Don't be a bigot. But that's what they say off of that. Now again, as we go along with this, there are some things that are probably true and there are some things that are probably not. So we'll use our own judgment as we go, but let's see what is happening with the Ukraine today. Starting with one from CNN. U.S. is expelling 12 Russian UN diplomats. From Richard Roth. The U.S. has asked 12 Russian UN diplomats to leave the U.S., accusing them of espionage activities. Yeah, that's going to go over well, as Russia continues its attack on the Ukraine. The diplomats were asked to leave due to their alleged engagement in activities that were not in accordance with their responsibilities and obligations as diplomats. Ambassador Richard Mills, deputy representative of the U.S. to the UN, said during a UN Security Council meeting on Monday afternoon. Ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, responded by saying Mills' explanation of the expulsions was not satisfactory. Come on, this is not satisfactory. You do better than this, yes? I say you do better. The diplomatic expulsions were announced less than a week after Russia began its attack on the Ukraine. Though the U.S. said that the move had been in the works for several months, last week the U.S. expelled the second most senior diplomat at the Russian embassy in response to Moscow's expulsion of the second-ranking U.S. diplomat in Moscow earlier in the year. The State Department announced the expulsion in the hours after Moscow began its bombardment and invasion of the Ukraine. The U.S. mission to the UN also said in a statement that the 12 Russian diplomats were intelligence operatives who have abused their privileges of residency in the U.S. by engaging in espionage activity that are adverse to our national security. How funny is it, by the way, that we now have somebody who's been in the government, the federal government service, because remember, he was a city council member before that. She called me and said she wanted her dog off the lawn. And son of a bitch, the dog was on her doorstep. I put it there, but I've become a better government employee now. So, I mean, this is a guy who's been in government forever, but he's been in the federal government since the 70s. And now we're going back to Cold War era stuff. You know, every Russian in there. I mean, is this McCarthyism? Were these people actually spies? I have questions about that. Or are we going back, and again, with an audience from CNN that believes that anything that Russia does is evil because they've been propagandized for 4 years, 5 years, that Russia committed the great evil of installing the demon lord, Donald Trumpo, into the White House. The Orange Demon Lord was spawned directly from Russia. Never mind all the movie appearances and everything else that we saw of him before this. I haven't looked to see if Amazon took down the episode of Top Gear that I actually owned that had Donald Trump buying the luxury car. I'd be curious to see if that disappeared or not. Silently. Let's see. The diplomatic expulsions were announced less than a week after Russia began its attack on the Ukraine. Though the U.S. said the move had been in the works for several months. Yeah, okay. Last week, the U.S. expelled the second most senior diplomat at the Russian embassy in response to Moscow's expulsion of the second-ranking U.S. diplomat in Moscow earlier this year. The State Department announced the expulsion in the hours after Moscow began its bombardment and invasion of the Ukraine. The U.S. mission to the UN also said in a statement that the 12 Russian diplomats were intelligence operatives. Did we do this already? I think we did. I think I just read a paragraph twice. We're taking this action in accordance with headquarters agreements. Today, the action has been in the work for several months. U.S. mission spokesperson Olivia Allaire-Dalton said. CNN has also reached out to the State Department for comment. So, I would say that's an escalation. If it was me. I don't know. If you guys think it's different, if this isn't an escalation, say it in the comments, but I think that it is. But we will see what happens with that. From NBC. Frustrated Putin may order escalation of violence in the Ukraine, U.S. officials say. I got a reminder for Sully Blue, though, before we get into this one here. Do remember that if you are against the U.S. putting troops on the ground in Ukraine, then you are a Russian bot. You're evil and owned by Russia, and you're super pro-Russia. Remember, this coming election, you can either vote for Democrats or you can vote for Russia and Putin. Frustrated Putin may order escalation of violence in the Ukraine, U.S. officials say. From Sergei Gunevev. No, that's the photographer. Who wrote this? Ken Dilanian, Carol E. Lee, Courtney Kube, and Dan DeLuce. U.S. intelligence agencies have determined that Russian President Vladimir Putin is growing increasingly frustrated by his military struggles in the Ukraine and may see his only option as doubling down on violence. Current former U.S. officials briefed on the matter tell NBC News. As the Russian economy teeters under unprecedented global sanctions and his purportedly superior military force appears bogged down, Putin has lashed out in anger at underlings, even as he remains largely isolated from the Kremlin, due in part to concerns about COVID, the sources said. It is like this is someone that's clearly been caught off guard by the size of the Ukrainian resistance. Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee on MSDNC, had said. He has isolated himself. He has not been in the Kremlin very much. You've got less and less inputs, and these inputs are from sycophants. He added, I do worry that he's been backed into a corner. I do worry that there's no obvious exit ramp. We could go watch some of the honk-honk bombing in Kharkiv. Western intelligence agencies have good visibility into the Russian leader right now and are closely watching his moves for any significant behavioral changes. Several current and former officials said, 4 American officials said there's no intelligence saying that he is mentally unstable, but said he has displayed a different pattern of behavior than in the past. The U.S. has solid intelligence that Putin is frustrated in expressing unusual bursts of anger at people in his inner circle over the state of his military campaign so far, and the worldwide condemnation of his actions. 2 current and 1 former U.S. official briefed on the intelligence told NBC News. That's unusual, they say, because Putin, a former Russian intelligence officer, usually keeps his emotions in check. He's no longer the same cold-blooded, killer-eyed dictator that he was in 2008. Former CIA... Jeez. What level of propaganda do we actually have to sit through with this? I mean, this is incredible. The level of propagandizing that Putin's a dictator. He installed the Trump. They're doing the evil thing over there. It is non-stop. Holy fuck. Former CIA Director John Brennan told NBC News. A Western diplomat said the Russian president appeared to be increasingly insulated and misinformed. The main concern is the information he's getting and how isolated he is. The isolation is a really big concern, the diplomat told NBC News. We don't believe he has a realistic understanding of what's going on. Marco Rubio, the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, said on Twitter that the old Putin was cold-blooded but calculating killer. This new Putin is even more dangerous. So that's what they're saying off of this and what Putin is. And again, there is a side of me that doesn't believe any of this. That believes that the State Department, the United States, her allies, are itching to get anything to go get in a war to be able to. And we saw some of this propaganda. We didn't talk about it last night, but I've talked about it on Contemporary before, where CBS came out and said, hey, guess what? That inflation you've been feeling for the last year, hey, that's coming from the Ukraine now. So the invasion here is going to cause prices to skyrocket, and this is why you're feeling pain at the pump right now. This is why your groceries are going to double in price again and have already doubled in price. This is why you're going to spend the same $40 but get less and less food out of it. and why we need to go to synthetic beef. Like it or not, in the Western nations right now, there is a massive economic struggle. And the people in charge of these nations do need somebody to blame. So that's what we see coming off of that, or at least that's what they're telling us is coming off of that. And remember, their news card, green check verified, so you know they're telling the truth. From WHIO7 out of Ohio. Undisguised terror, Russia's Kharkiv strike chills Ukraine. In the dust and debris and the dead in Kharkiv Central Square, Ukrainians on Tuesday saw that what might become of other cities if Russia's invasion isn't countered in time. Not long after sunrise, a Russian military strike hit the center of Ukraine's second largest city, badly damaging the symbolic Soviet-era regional administration building. CCTV showed a fireball engulfing the street in front of the building, with a few cars continuing to roll out the billowing smoke. You cannot watch this without crying, a witness said in the video of the aftermath, verified by the Associated Press. An emergency official said the bodies of at least 6 people had been pulled from the ruins. At least 20 people were injured. It wasn't immediately clear what type of weapon was used or how many people were killed, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said there were dozens of casualties. Zelensky called the attack on the square frank, undisguised terror. Nobody will forgive. Nobody will forget. The attack on Kharkiv is a war crime. And again, that goes on the assumption that it actually happened. It was the first time the Russian military had hit the center of the city. About 1.5 million people whose residential neighborhoods have been under fire for days. The Ukrainian Emergency Service said it put out 24 fires in and around Kharkiv caused by shelling, and it had disabled 69 explosive devices. Also struck on Tuesday was a tent site in the central square that had been set up to collect aid for volunteer Ukrainian fighters who have rushed to Kharkiv's defense in recent days. Volunteer guards had occupied the regional administration building as part of these efforts. It was feared that some of the volunteers were now among the dead. Windows of the admin building were blown out, ceilings had collapsed, concrete dust added another layer of gray desperation. A nearby car was crushed. As emergency responders picked through the debris, there was fresh anger. "This is for those who are waiting for Russia peace. This is what you wanted, yes? Many injured?" one said. The Russian military... And everybody clapped. The Russian military has denied targeting civilians despite abundant evidence of shelling of residential buildings, schools, and hospitals. The military takes all measures to preserve the lives and safety of civilians. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said on Tuesday, "I would like to stress that strikes carried out only on military targets and uses exclusively precision weapons." Unconvinced, one Kharkiv hospital has moved its maternity ward to a bomb shelter with pregnant women pacing in the gloom. The cries of dozens of newborns echoed off the thick concrete walls. Electrical cables dangled, rolled-up mattresses were placed against windows. As the shelling in Kharkiv intensified, one family spent a 5th day in another shelter beneath the city. Water bottles and backpacks were stocked in the basement. A military-style helmet hung on a shelf, and underneath it, a boy looked at a phone, boredom mixed with fear. "It's a nightmare, and it seizes you from the inside very strongly. This cannot be explained with words," Mother Ekaterina Babenko said. So this is what they're telling us happening in Kharkiv. Which to me, again, if we take this at face value, then we need to start saying some condemnation to Russia. But again, I don't see a need to start putting U.S. troops into there, especially given the fact that Zelensky said, no, we got this. Just leave it alone right now. That was before he went off to the peace talks. If this is all true, I would be curious to see what he's saying right now. And I don't question the fact that there are some things happening in Kharkiv, but I mean, I was one of the first people rather, to come out and question one of the triggers that pushed the quote-unquote Russian peace troops into Donetsk and Luhansk way back at the beginning, because there were reports that day, that was on Wednesday, of an unmarked tank rolling through, going through the demilitarized zone between where the Russian exercises were going on and those regions. Nobody had any idea whose tank that was, and both sides said, hey, that's not our tank. What the fuck is this? Is this Russia? Is this you? Ukraine, is this you? And then you have the Spider-Men pointing at each other, of course. And I do get curious as to what uniform and what flag was on the sleeves of the people that were in there, because, frankly, given the mainstream media obsession about this story, I'm sorry to say, but I would not be surprised at all to find out that there was a U.S. flag on the shoulders of the team that were operating that tank. I can't back that up because I wasn't in the tank. But at this point, given everything that we're seeing coming out of this and all the effort that's made to get the U.S. involved in this conflict and make this conflict happen, and, you know, the Ghosts of Kiev story, the Sam Hyde story, which was ridiculously stupid, the footage from a video game story, the stuff like that, nothing would surprise me anymore. But that's what we say out for that. From Al Jazeera, no breakthrough at Ukraine talks as Russian assault continues. Al Jazeera does not give an author. The first round of Ukraine-Russia talks aimed at ending the fighting between Moscow and its neighbor have concluded with no immediate agreements. The talks took place near the Belarus-Ukraine border on Monday as Russian troops continued their attack on Ukrainian cities, including the second largest, Kharkiv, on the fifth day of Russian invasion. An aide to Putin said the talks with Ukrainian officials lasted nearly 5 hours. Vladimir Medinsky, who headed the Russian delegation, and the two sides found certain points on which common positions could be foreseen, and another round of talks was agreed to, Medinsky said. So, well, they're going to come back and have the conversation. Given the fact the State of the Union is tonight in this country, I'm actually just a little bit surprised that we're not seeing this ending right now and a ceasefire into place. Because that would, with everything else that has gone on and everything else that has hamstrung the Brandon administration and their agenda, they need a win. And I actually thought that they were going to manufacture a win off of this. I'm a little surprised by this right now. But diplomatically and strategically, I'm also a little bit not surprised, because while Putin himself went down to Belarus to go and have the talks, Zelensky did not. And that is showing a sign of weakness and a sign of, in Eastern politics, disrespect to Vladimir Putin. Why would he stop his shelling when Zelensky couldn't even respect him enough to show up? But that's what we see off of that. From the Hill. Zelensky calls for Ukraine to be given immediate EU membership. Yeah, that's going to go over well, because with EU membership, that winds up being the next step towards NATO. It's not NATO membership, obviously, but that's a step towards this. But also, this could be a fiscal decision as well, because with Ukraine's currency probably failing right now, not as bad as Russia's is, but with Ukraine's currency probably not doing very well at this point, I would say they probably need some sort of influx of cash or stability into their currency to try to prop the markets up. But we'll see what happens with that. Let's read from Dominic Mastrangelo. Volodymyr Zelensky is asking Ukraine to be admitted to the EU as his country fights off Russian forces amid a full-scale invasion. Our goal is to be together with all Europeans and, most importantly, to be on equal footing, Zelensky said during a video address, according to the New York Times, a former newspaper. I'm sure it's fair, he added. I'm sure it's possible. Russia's invasion of Ukraine entered its fifth day, Monday, and Zelensky's request to join the EU comes as diplomats from Kyiv and the Kremlin have agreed to meet for talks. Sorry, Katie. I knew you would enjoy that. Dozens of people have been killed near the missile attacks and fighting in the streets near Ukraine's major cities in recent days. Hundreds of citizens have fled the war-torn country, while others have joined military resistance efforts and have taken up arms against Russian forces. Several EU member nations and allies in the West, like the US, have pledged to support the Ukraine and condemned Russia's invasion on Sunday. Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the country's nuclear defense systems be put on higher alert, citing that he says are threats from the West. Before Putin launched a full-scale invasion of the Ukraine last week, he warned countries that interference with his operations will face consequences you've never seen before. We will have so many consequences. Sounds like he's trying to pull a Trump line. You know, fire and fury, the likes of which the world has never seen before. So, we'll see what happens with that. On more of this, Zelensky has a talk with Biden. From Axios, Scoop, Zelensky pushes Biden on no-fly zone. From Jonathan Swan, Zachary Basu, Sophia Kai. Zelensky is urging Biden and NATO to impose a no-fly zone over significant parts of the country, telling Axios in a statement that Ukraine can beat the aggressor if the Western allies do their part. President Biden has ruled out sending U.S. troops to fight Russia in the Ukraine. That pledge extends to a no-fly zone, which means we can probably skip the Reuters article because that's what they're talking about here, which would require the U.S. military to potentially directly engage Russian air forces, White House Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobblehead stressed on Monday. Zelensky, who remains in Ukraine under the siege from Vladimir Putin, said in a statement that Axios provided through an advisor, "If the West does this, Ukraine will defeat aggressor with much less blood. The sanctions are heading right direction. In addition to disconnecting Russian central bank from SWIFT and providing more stingers and anti-tank weapons, we need West to impose no-fly zone over significant parts of Ukraine," Zelensky said. Ukraine can beat aggressors. We are proving this to the world, but our allies must also do their part. But, here's what's important for everybody to know about the no-fly zone. I mean, that would require is implementation by the U.S. military. It would essentially mean that the U.S. military would be shooting down Russian planes, Psaki told MSDNC, and she's not wrong. Like, I'm not going to be one of these full-on, like Ted Cruz's, complete anti-Psaki people. When she's right, she's right. And this is, I mean, if you're going to try to commit to not putting troops on the ground, which I don't believe you're doing right now, given the breathless news coverage of this, then I will tell you right off the bat that once you throw that no-fly zone up there, it's the same thing as putting troops on the ground at that point. You are using military assets to tip the tide in the favor of one direction or another. And you are inviting, as he said, consequences like you have never seen before. So, Kinzinger, who is not going to be running for re-election and has nothing to lose on Capitol Hill, tweeted Friday that the U.S. should declare a no-fly zone over Ukraine to disrupt Russia's air operations and give the heroic Ukrainians a fair fight. A neoconservative, warmongering Democrat, or Republican rather, well, same thing at this point, wants us to do something to put troops into the area because Raytheon and Lockheed Martin need to sell more torpedoes and missiles. I guess torpedoes would be underwater, but missiles to go on the underside of those wings. Kinzinger's call was met with prompt criticism from members of both parties. Good. And And even Democrats at this point, Sarah Jacobs of California, in a statement on Saturday, rejected calls for the U.S. and NATO to establish a no-fly zone over Ukraine, saying it'd pull America into a war with Russia. No, this is insane, Thomas Massie also tweeted in response to Kinzinger's tweet. So, yeah, let's not do that. And again, we can probably go over this one, because this is the same thing as what's in this article. So we're back to Axios again. Zelensky addresses European Parliament. No one is going to break us. But I believe this is going to be in Ukrainian, so I don't know if we're going to be able to understand this.
Today, we're giving lives for values, for rights, for freedom, for the desire to be equal as much as you are. We are giving people the ones, the most value-based ones. Ukrainians are incredible. And very often we love to say that we will win over everyone. And I'm very happy that you are not only talking about it, but you can see that. And we will overcome everyone. And I'm sure, I'm convinced, there is an expression, Ukrainian choice, European choice of Ukraine. That's what we're striving for, and that's what we're going to, and we went to. So I would like to hear that from you to us, we could hear that Ukrainian choice for Europe from you. I have some time off here because we have breaks between the missile strikes and bombardments. And this morning was a very tragic one for us. 2 cruise missiles hit Kharkiv, the city which is located to the borders of the Russian Federation. There were always many Russians there, and they're always friendly. There were warm relations there. More than 20 universities are there. It's the city that has the largest number of universities in our country. The youth is bright, smart there.
So, and I mean, a lot of this is coming from a place of emotion, which, you know, as a leader, I don't want to see, but I do understand too. Like, again, if we're taking what we see in Kharkiv as face value, then this guy just lost 1.5 million people who are under his care. So I understand some of that a little bit, to come off the emotion off of this. Let's read here. Ukrainian President Zelensky delivered an emotional address to the European Parliament on Tuesday as his country continues its fierce resistance on the 6th day of brutal Russian invasion that is increasingly targeting civilians. Zelensky has cast Russia's assault on Ukraine as an attack on Europe and its democratic values. He is now pleading with the EU to grant Ukraine membership, formally signing an application on Monday after European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said, "Ukraine is one of us." Zelensky's address came hours after a Russian missile strike caused massive damage to Kharkiv's Freedom Square, a civilian area in Ukraine's second largest city. This is the price of freedom. We're fighting just for our land and for our freedom, despite the fact that all of the cities of our country are now blocked, Zelensky told the European Parliament as his translator began to choke up. Every square today, no matter what it's called, is going to be called Freedom Square in every city in our country. No one is going to break us. We are strong. We are Ukrainians, he continued. We have a desire to see our children alive. I think it's a fair one. On the big picture, the leaders of 9 Eastern and Central European countries, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia, and Slovenia, have called on the EU to immediately begin the process of granting Ukraine membership. So, I don't know if this happens or not. I don't know if it's feasible or not, but we'll continue to watch and see where it goes. from The Blaze. A whopping 70% of U.S. adults believe U.S. troops should get involved if Russia invades a NATO country. Well, contractually, we kind of have to. I don't think we should, but, we can't break contract either. Not that they really have any sort of means to defend that. We'll go over that on a different time. A Quinnipiac University poll of adults in the U.S. found that 70% believe U.S. troops should get involved if Russia mounts an invasion against the NATO nation, or a NATO nation, not the NATO nation, while 21% think that the U.S. soldiers should get involved if such a scenario unfolds, or do not think, rather. The eyes of the world are on Ukraine as people of that country bravely fight to defend their sovereign nation against a Russian invasion. The survey, which was conducted from the 25th to the 27th, found 63% are concerned that Russia might utilize nuclear weapons if NATO attempts to intervene, while 32% are not concerned. The poll found that 66% believe that Vladimir Putin plans to invade additional countries, while 20% do not think he intends to invade elsewhere. President Brandon has said that the American forces will not get involved in the Russia-Ukraine war, though he's also declared that America will defend NATO territory. And there's the House-Plant-in-Chief telling us that right there.
Our forces are not and will not be engaged in the conflict with Russia in Ukraine. Our forces are not going to Europe to fight in Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies and reassure those allies in the East. As I made crystal clear, the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power.
The full force of our diverse transgender military. They have enough diversity to defend us against everybody. You think they were setting those people up to be meat shields in a situation like this, by the way? Like, who goes to the front? It's usually not the seasoned veterans who've been through it a bunch of times. Usually it's the grunts. It's the first enlisted. The people who can't breed for the state. Oh, wait, no, that's Soviet stuff, not U.S. stuff. We would never do that here. Let's grab one from CNN. So, warning, disturbing images. And again, possibly some propaganda to go with this. CNN's headline, "Show this to Putin, a 6-year-old girl killed in Ukraine." Warning, graphic images. Photographs by Evgeny Moletka. Alright, so this is a medical team working to save a 6-year-old that they're going to put right up on the front page of CNN with big warnings, because what drives people away from more footage than big warning? Quicker than big warnings. With a doctor pumping oxygen into her, looked into the camera of an Associated Press video journalist in the room. "Show this to Putin," he said. "The eyes of this child and crying doctors." So, there they are, working to save this girl. Name is not immediately known. Was injured by shelling in a residential area, according to the Associated Press. At the left is her father. Hospital workers transport the girl onto a gurney and take her inside the hospital. Trying to get her oxygen. The girl's lifeless body lies in the hospital room, covered by her jacket. Which, again, I'm glad to see images like this to show that war is hell. Obviously, I don't want to see anybody hurt. But to show that war is absolute hell. That it's not just the military people that get involved in something like this. It is civilians. There are people on the ground that get hurt when something like this happens. You can target military people all you want. You still have collateral damage. But looking at images like this, coming over to CNN by the Associated Press, all I see as a tug at the heartstrings of American citizens to try to get us pulled into this. Look at that evil Putin. He's killing children, don't you know? On a moment that should have been private. Doctors being allowed to work to try to save somebody while the father grieves, not blasted all over CNN. This kind of pisses me off in more ways than one. Of course, I hate the fact that a 6-year-old girl had to lose her life, but the fact that this is being used as war propaganda to try to elicit a certain reaction from U.S. people, that really makes me mad. A lot. Like, beyond just people talking about, well, if you don't vote for a Democrat, then you're a Russian asset. Beyond that, I know what they're trying to do with this. I know exactly what they're trying to do with this. And sadly, it's working. More Psaki news, because we always need Psaki news. Is there a red line? Fox reporter grills Psaki on Putin's potential war crimes. Fox News White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich peppered Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobblehead with questions about the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine and reports that the Russian military had been using illegal ordnance over the course of the invasion thus far. Let's listen.
There are reports of illegal cluster bombs and vacuum bombs being used by the Russians. If that's true, what is the next step of this administration, and is there a red line for how much violence will be tolerated against civilians in this manner that's illegal and potentially a war crime?
It would be. I don't have any confirmation of that. We have seen the reports. If that were true, it would potentially be a war crime. Obviously, there are a range of international fora that would assess that. So certainly we would look to that to be a part of that conversation.
Another one here. The aid that you just laid out, the Post reported over the weekend, that is the aid that will not include stingers. That would likely come in a future batch of aid. What is the reason for that?
And then the new aid that you just laid out at the beginning here, the Post reported over the weekend that this aid will not include stingers, that it would likely come in a future batch of aid. What is the reason for that?
I'm not going to get into specifics of what is in the military package. It is a combination of ground and airborne defense capabilities, and obviously we have provided those in the past, but I'm not going to have more details to outline for you.
And a little bit more. You mentioned this next batch of aid is going to be coming in the next few days. Why is it so long? I mean, days doesn't sound like a long time to us, but...
You mentioned that this next batch is going to be coming in the next few days. Why so long? I mean, days doesn't sound like a long time to us. But...
The package that we had already announced continues to be delivered. So we have expedited the plans for delivery of this new package.
So that's what we hear coming from that. I think there's one more. No, there isn't one more. So... I do understand logistics and trying to get something into a war zone where there is a no-fly zone, where your opponent or your perceived opponent has threatened nuclear action if NATO tries to intervene or the West tries to intervene. But still, you should be working a little bit harder for this if you are trying to provide aid at this point. From The Blaze. Twitter is now labeling and lessening the visibility of tweets hyperlinked to Russian state-owned media. More propaganda, more control of the narrative from Carlos Garcia. Microblogging platform Twitter will... Microblogging platform Twitter will label and lessen the visibility of tweets hyperlinked to Russian state-owned media in an attempt to tamp down propaganda for the country, as opposed to the rest of the propaganda for going to war against the country that we've been seeing for the last 5 fucking years. CNN tech reporter Brian Fung posted an example of the label that would be added to tweets that are hyperlinked to certain sites like Russia Today and Sputnik. They've already done it for Sputnik. Actually, I don't know. Did they haven't done it for Twitter. They did for YouTube, though, so. This tweet links to a Russian state-affiliated media website. Twitter users are able to bring articles to the attention of their followers, but the social media site can tweak its algorithm to lessen the spread of those tweets when it deems it necessary, just like they can to anything else that they don't want you to see. Like a certain person who's trying to stand up against the media, advertising his morning web show. The company said the overwhelming majority of tweets containing the state-sponsored content was already shared by individuals, and not the accounts run by those outlets. Another 45,000 tweets were sent per day by these individual accounts, according to the company. So again, the suppression of information. And you should be able to at least hear Russia's side out, but, that's dangerous. That's dangerous misinformation and disinformation. Coming from the Russians, just like trying to put Trump into office. From the Dissociated Press. I said from the Dissociated Press. Maybe not. There it goes. Hooray! That gave me a little bit of chance to read the chat too, so. Russian forces shell Ukraine's number 2 city and menace Kiev. Yeah, we know about this one already. But it is nice because they'll show us the actual nuclear stockpile. So, as of right now, around the world, global nuclear inventories in 2022, Russia, 4,477, United States, 3,708, China has 350, France has 290, UK has 180, Pakistan, as President Obama put it, has 165, India 160, Israel 90, and North Korea 20. And I've seen charts like this before, where they show that Dave has 1. And everybody comes back and says, okay, it's good to know this information, but who the hell is Dave? But we've covered this extensively already, so let's grab one from Newsweek. Ukrainian man partially sinks yacht of Russian CEO selling weapons. From Fatma Khalid. A Ukrainian ship crew member reportedly tried to sink a yacht owned by the CEO of a Russian weapons manufacturer in protest over the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. The 55-year-old Ukrainian was identified as D. Taras O. Tried to sink the boat by flooding the engine room and opening a large valve as well as another one in a different part of the boat, the Majorca Daily Bulletin reported. The yacht, called Lady Anastasia, reportedly belongs to Alexander Mejiv, the Russian CEO of Rosoboronexport, a Russian military weapons company. The man then shut down the electricity and closed the fuel valves before asking 3 Ukrainian crew members to leave the ship. The other crew members, who later reported him to authorities, called him crazy and asked him to close the valve that was causing the leak, according to El País. The yacht was left with a destroyed engine room. The man's motivation to sink the yacht? Ukraine was being attacked, he said, by missiles manufactured by the owner's company. Otherwise known as the opening plot of Iron Man. The 55-year-old worked for 10 years as chief engineer of the yacht, which is worth about 7 million euros or 7.8 million US dollars, and stretches nearly 48 meters at the Mallorca port, according to El País. Well, if that's what makes you feel better at night, that's between you and the yacht owner and the authorities at this point. Am I wrong, Arvold? Yeah. So, you and the authorities and the guy that owns this thing, I mean, it's time for you guys to go and sit and have a conversation and decide what to do about this, but, I mean, again, taking matters into your own hands if you believe that this is it. I don't see any evidence that this particular engineer got directly assaulted, so I don't particularly care for this. But still. More Kharkiv news. I should have put this up with the Kharkiv stuff. But a lot of what we've seen already. Let's grab one from the New York Post then instead. D. Snyder approves Ukrainians' use of "We're not going to take it" as a battle cry. From Alex Mitchell. "This is our life, this is our song." Twisted Sister lead singer D. Snyder loves that his 1984 smash hit "We're Not Gonna Take It" is being used as a battle hymn by Ukraine's resistance against Russian invaders, he proclaimed on Twitter. "I absolutely approve of Ukrainians using 'We're Not Gonna Take It' as a battle cry. My grandfather was Ukrainian before it was swallowed up by the USSR after World War II. This can't happen to these people again," Snyder tweeted on Saturday as Ukrainian forces were battling to defend Kiev and other cities. Frankly, the rabble-rousing song is a fitting tune for these heroic homeland defenders, 13 of whom told Russian naval forces to go fuck themselves before getting shelled on Snake Island base some days ago, and yet still surviving. Snyder, who's been using the hashtags "Fuck Russia" and "Fuck Putin" in recent tweet tirades on the global matter, has been outspoken against the nation since the Cold War and early days of the New Jersey and Long Island rock group. He recently posted a photo of himself wearing a "Russia Sucks" button from the time he recalled as the late 70s. "Oh, my Ukrainian grandpa would have been so proud," Snyder tweeted along with a photo on Sunday. Propagandistic, of course. Cringy, of course. But what can you really do about it at this point? Let's keep going from the Hill. Some U.S. sanctions going on for private companies here. Shell joins BP in divesting from Russia. From Zach Budrick, so 2 oil companies are divesting from the country. Given the fact this is going to put a crunch on the global supply, your gas prices will be going up, by the way, because of this. I mean, if they don't want to do business with the country, and they don't have a contract, I don't have a problem with them doing this, but do pay attention to where your gas prices are coming from. And I like Shell gas, too, by the way. I usually get 100 miles more out of a tank if I use Shell gas. But still. From Zach Budrick. Shell will end all joint ventures with the Russian majority state-owned oil company, Gazprom, in response to the invasion of the Ukraine, the oil company announced on Monday. As part of its divestiture, Shell will withdraw from its 27.5% Sakhalin Il liquefied natural gas facility and its 50% stake in Salim Petroleum Development. The company will also drop its involvement with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which was set to carry natural gas from Russia to Germany. Germany itself decertified the pipeline in response to the invasion before it could go online, and it remains unclear if it will begin operations at any point in the future. Shell owned a 10% stake in the pipeline and had about $3 billion overall in non-current assets in Russia as of late 2021. We are shocked by the loss of life in Ukraine, which we deplore, resulting from senseless act of military aggression which threatens European security, CEO Ben Van Beurden said in a statement. Our immediate focus is the safety of our people in Ukraine and supporting our people in Russia. In discussion with governments around the world, we will also work through detailed business implications, including the importance of secure energy supplies to Europe and other markets in compliance with relevant sanctions. So with that, as I said, your gas prices are probably going to go up a bit as we go. So watch for that as the days go by. Elon Musk is in the news. Elon activates free SpaceX Starlink satellites internet service in the Ukraine. From Megan Cerullo. SpaceX founder and billionaire Elon Musk is providing free satellite-based internet service in Ukraine through his company Starlink as Russia invades the nation and causes power outages. Starlink is a growing network of small satellites that SpaceX has been building since 2018 to supply broadband internet access around the globe. On Monday, the Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine and Minister of Digital Transformation, Mikhailo Fedorov, tweeted that a full truck of Starlink terminals had arrived in Ukrainian soil after he had requested them. There are your receivers. Fedorov had appealed to Musk in a tweet on Saturday asking him to extend Starlink's high-speed broadband internet services to the besieged country, rhetorically noting that while you try to colonize Mars, Russia is trying to occupy Ukraine. While your rockets successfully land from space, Russian rockets attack Ukrainian civil people. Musk apparently obliged, tweeting Saturday that Starlink service was active in Ukraine, and also agreeing to send more Starlink terminals to expand the country's bandwidth. I mean, if you're just passing that shit around, Elon, come on, I think a lot of us would enjoy that. My question is it stable and is it fast? Because everything that I have right now is hardwired, but it still goes through a satellite connection to get to the greater world internet. But regardless, I mean, good on him for providing charity. And private companies do much better than the government. They always have. But still, I mean, come on, man. We're over here. Yeah, just don't dox anybody, Natty. That's pretty much the only rule. And try to keep down on the racially charged language. Other than that, I don't really care. This is a repeat. We'll skip this one because we're up on time. And I think the last one we'll do here is an op-ed from The Hill, Time to Rethink Assistance to Ukraine and the Former Soviet Space. This is from Daniel Runde and Brock Bierman, opinion contributors. The views expressed by contributors are their own and not the view of The Hill. The views expressed in this article are also the views of the contributors and not the views of the host or TurdsandPagesProductions.com as a whole, rather. Wow, I can really talk this morning. The U.S. needs to go big with an economic aid package for Ukraine and the post-Soviet space. We need to massively increase assistance and attention to the former Eastern Bloc. Ukraine is going to need a lot of help. We also need to recommit many other countries diplomatically and economically. Our existing approach to these post-communist transitions was built on the assumptions that if the West invests a small amount of money, combined with EU and NATO membership and globalization, countries will develop and follow that gravitational pull. In some places, our assistance supported big successes, such as the 3 Baltic states. In other places, the culture of democracy was fragile and never deeply embraced, such as in Belarus. Places like Moldova have been under Russian influence since the 19th century. Their experience and understanding on how to manage the democracy is different than in the US and the West. We needed a Marshall Plan after the fall of the Berlin Wall. Instead, the US and the West implemented half measures. I'm going to stop you right here, because these two gentlemen here, are telling you that we need to provide billions of dollars to the Ukraine in aid on your taxpayer dollar. And of course, when it comes out of the taxpayer dollar, the first question you have to ask is how much of it is skimmed off the top, because there's no transparency over there. You can't see that when it's going to the US government. I agree with sending aid over to the Ukraine. I think that's a good thing. I really do. I think that people should, because they're in a shitty situation. Whether we take what we see from the mainstream media at face value or we accept the fact that some of this is propagandized, they're still in a shitty situation. But just like with the trucker convoy, once the government got involved, that all got shut down and turned to shit anyway. But just like with the trucker convoy, and just like with many other charitable ventures, especially given the fact that laws surrounding national charities and international charities require transparency of what the CEOs are getting paid off the top, unlike the US government. This should all be handled with a private charity. I have no problem throwing a $20 bill in or a $50 bill in to a private charity where I can see what the CEO is making, where I can see what the organizer is making, and the staff is making on a moment's notice. I have no problem throwing some aid to Ukraine out of my pocket. I just don't want it to go to the government and then have to wonder if $5 of that is going to the Ukrainians and 45 is going to the government bureaucracy to pay for the fact that it's going over the Ukrainians. I am a major advocate for private charity. I mean, look at what we saw last April, where we set up and pulled $1,800 for suicide prevention. Something that I'm hoping to, and I've got to make sure that, figure out where I'm going to be living coming up in April here, because lease is up, and, well, we'll figure that out here, but I don't know if I want to stay here or not. But regardless of that, it's cheap, it's easy to save money, and it's close to work. But on the other end of everything here, I mean, it's small, it's a little bit cramped and crowded. I don't know, we'll figure that out. But regardless, looking in on this, yes, I want to do more charity work. That's one of the reasons that I want to grow Turns of Pages Productions and become independently successful, is so I can give more money to charity, because nobody was there for me when I needed help. And I don't want to extend that same indifference to the rest of the world. I want to be there for people and help people, whether it be through monetary contributions to charities or doing walks, raising awareness for things. And that's the same thing with this. Private charity will do better than the federal government will 10 times out of 10. And with that is what we have on the Ukraine. Quite a stretch, quite a bunch of stuff. And it's moving and changing every day. Let's see if we can grab some other of this stuff, but we do have to head out of here because we gotta go to work. This is one I wanted to cover here today, so I've moved this right up to the top because this is some of the things that they're trying to move while everybody's paying attention over in the Ukraine. Reading from the Blaze to start with, Senate Democrats prioritize radical abortion bill over aid for Ukraine, from Chris Pandolfo. The U.S. Senate has returned from recess, and the first major item on the legislative agenda is now humanitarian and security aid for Ukraine's war against the Russian invaders. Good. Instead, a Democratic leadership has scheduled a procedural vote for a radical abortion bill that would essentially codify Roe v. Wade into federal law. Not good. Democrats will attempt to advance the Women's Health Protection Act Monday, a bill that advocates say will enshrine the rights to an abortion into U.S. law and protect abortion rights in the case the Supreme Court overturns Roe later this year. Pro-life activists warn the bill would severely undermine state laws to protect preborn children and prevent pro-life legislation from being passed in the future. Funny, that's the same approach that went with the election bill. The Supreme Court recognized the constitutional right to abortion in a 1973 decision in Roe. In addition to establishing a statutory right to an abortion, the Women's Health Protection Act would erase medically unnecessary restrictions, limitations, and bans that delay and at times completely obstruct access to abortion, according to the Center for Reproductive Rights. Okay, so I'm actually going to come out and say this. Democrats are doing what I told them to do. And realizing that this is not as popular as they think that it is. Obviously, in a 50-50 Senate, you weren't going to get this passed, but you weren't going to get usually spanked this fucking hard, either. And with only 94 members of the Senate being back at this point, and a 48-46 loss, which we'll talk about in the next article, you got fucking spanked off of this, but, again, you've actually done what you should be doing at this point. That is the thing, and strategically I do believe that this was put in place because they knew that they couldn't win it. But I've said from the beginning, okay, if you're that worried about Roe getting overturned, put your fucking money where your mouth is. Make it into law. Ask the people that you represent how they feel about this, and see if these people can still go home and get reelected after you've codified it into law, because I don't think that they can. And I do believe that's a big part of the reason why this hasn't been attempted to be codified into law, because it's a perpetual election issue. But on the other end of it, especially when they're facing down a possible doom of it, I think the Supreme Court's going to cuck on it, to be completely honest. But as they're facing down one of the first real challenges to this legislation ever, they're now looking into this and saying, oh, we better come back and put our money where our mouths are, which I've been saying. But in doing so, if they were to get this passed and go through the House, where it most certainly would pass if it could pass the Senate, go to the president's desk and get signed, I'm pretty positive you lose the Senate at that point from coming across the country. B, it doesn't pass the filibuster, which is why they're trying to do it right now as a symbolic gesture to say, see, we're trying to do something. And C, you're undermining the states' rights off of this. And you're also taking away a perpetual presidential election issue. That's the worst part of it for them. Is if they do fix this, if they codify it into law, they can't run on it anymore. Oh, well, make sure you vote for our Democratic nominee, no matter who he is, no matter how corrupt he or she is, no matter how bad this person is, no matter how old this person is, no matter how many gaffes he's had. Whoever we put up for you to vote for, you better vote for president. Because otherwise, the next Republican might nominate another Supreme Court justice, and we might lose Roe, and then you'll be chained to the stove and never be able to leave and be property of your husband. That's a potential election issue. Every 4 years, we hear about it. And if they codify it, it's no longer a potential election issue. So that is where that goes. Reading on what happened with this from The Hill. Manchin joins with Senate GOP to block the bill guaranteeing abortion access. From Jordan Carney. Joe Manchin joined the Senate Republicans on Monday to oppose legislation codifying the right to an abortion. Senators voted 46 to 48 to move the bill toward a debate on the Senate floor, falling short of the 3/5 vote needed to move it forward. The bill, which passed the House last year, enshrines the right to... Oh, so this actually has been through the House. I thought this was fresh into the Senate. The bill, which passed the House last year, enshrines the right to an abortion and pushes back against state-level restrictions. The Senate's failed vote comes as the Supreme Court is weighing a case that could curb Roe v. Wade. Sadly, it looks like the Supreme Court will limit abortion rights in the coming months. That's why this bill is essential, Senate Majority Leader Chuck U. Schumer of New York said. Is he really the majority leader, though, currently? I know the Hill is going to propagandize to it, and they don't usually change it in the middle, but is he really the majority leader right now? Even on a full Senate of everybody who's able-bodied that's there, they're 49 to 50. The Democrats have a senator out on a stroke, and it is unclear whether or not he's going to make it back before the midterms. I did too, Sully, by the way. I actually did too. I know how that feels, and I feel sorry about that. I really do. I know that story exactly. Let's see. But the bill was guaranteed to fail because it needed 60 votes to move forward. Manchin and Bob Casey of Pennsylvania were formal co-sponsors of the bill, but Casey had previously said he wouldn't vote to start debate on the bill. Asked about Manchin's no vote, Sam Runyon, a spokesperson for Manchin, said Senator Manchin's position has not changed. Senate Minority Leader Turtleman McConnell accused the Democrats of trying to support a radical policy to appease their base. And he's not wrong about that either, by the way. Give us the Senate, and we can pass this. Give us those 60 votes. You know you can. Again, our colleagues wish to demonstrate that the radical left fringe runs today's Democratic Party, McConnell said. No, it's all a theater floor show. It really is. Murkowski and Collins voted against advancing the Democratic bill, but introduced a proposal shortly before the vote to codify Roe v. Wade, because of course they did. But that's where that stands. And we can see the actual roll call here. Let's have a listen to what that sounded like. It's a shorty little one, 12 seconds.
On this vote, the yeas are 46, the nays are 48, 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion is not agreed to. On this vote, the yeas are...
You know, it's been a while since I've got to use the sounder, but as much as I don't want the government involved in any of this, having this overturned would just kick this back to the states. So as far as this bill goes, so that is over. Barely expect. Oh, so 48 votes is fine when it comes to over half the population losing our bodily autonomy. But we need 60 votes to get anything else done. Make it make sense. Well, 46 is less than 60. So apparently math was not your strong suit. Barely a speck. All right. Here's one that goes on to what we're talking about tonight. I know we're up on the clock. So tonight, KTZed and I are going to be live streaming the State of the Union address right on this channel. If you're watching on Twitch or DLive, there will be no YouTube because they will slap a copyright strike on that so fast it's not even fucking funny, because they don't want people like us commenting on that over on YouTube side. Twitch is a little bit more lenient, thankfully. But come back and join us on this channel for that. That's going to be a great time. But we will also be watching at least one of the rebuttals, and I think we're going to watch the Rashida Tlaib one. But now there are 3 rebuttals going on. 2 Democrats and a Republican have decided to make rebuttals to the State of the Union. From the Daily Wire's Virginia Kruta reading, President Brandon's March 1st State of the Union speech is now set to be followed by 3 separate responses. And 2 of the 3 will come from members of the president's own party. It's traditional for one member of the opposition party to give a response to the president's annual address, and Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds was designated last week to give the Republican Party's response. But on February 23rd, Politico reported that Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib also planned to give an official response to the Biden's first formal State of the Union on behalf of the far-left Working Families Party. And now, Colin Allred of Texas will deliver the Congressional Black Caucus's response. Yeah, this sounds like a united front here. So, yeah. I don't know, again, if we are going to actually be able to watch all 3 of them. I know that usually the rebuttal is pretty short, especially compared to what the State of the Union is. But we'll be here on the alternate channels. Again, no YouTube, so Twitch, twitch.tv/jagger101, or DLive, is it DLive.com or DLive.tv? I can't remember. Give me a second. DLive.tv/edsblog Twitter. Come and join us on one of those 2 platforms tonight, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, as we watch the Brandon admin pump our president full of drugs to make sure he can sit out there and give a sometimes hour to hour and a half speech, taking credit for things that he didn't do, and then at least one of these responses. That'll be a good time. I don't know which. I think I'm going to try to find the Tlaib one. I really am. And I think that's it. I think that's... Oh, nope, I want to get this one too. Alabama.com will get the last story, and then we'll do Twitter trending and head out of here for the day. So, Alabama.com. Alabama recalls Let's Go Brandon license plate, calling it objectionable. Well, it can't be Let's Go Brandon, fuck Joe Biden, because there's a space there. A Blount County man who personalized his license plate with the acronym LGBFJB, a Don't Tread on Me image, and the words Let's Go Brandon, a phrase popularly associated with a vulgar insult against Joe Biden. Oh no, a vulgar insult, has been told by the state of Alabama he must change the plate name or lose his vehicle registration. Nathan Kirk, the owner of Blount County Tactical, a gun store in Oneonta, is considering taking legal action on the First Amendment grounds to keep the license plate name. Nothing about it is right, he said in the letter he received from the Alabama Department of Revenue on Friday. Someone at Montgomery, I'm assuming, doesn't like it, and now they're throwing a fit. The letter informed Kirk's wife, Courtney Kirk, who has his vehicle registered in her name, according to Kirk, that she had 10 days to surrender the license plate to a county official or have the vehicle registration revoked. They are not fucking around. The Alabama Department of Revenue Motor Vehicle Division has determined the above referenced license plate contains objectionable language, which is considered by the department to be offensive to the peace and dignity of the state of Alabama. The department did not immediately respond to a request for comment about the incident. The letter dated February 17th stated that the registration for the plate would not be renewed and that an alternate plate could be selected for no charge. Kirk said he paid $700 for the personalized plate back in October. The saying, Let's Go Brandon reportedly started its life at the Talladega Speedway when a reporter mistook the crowd's cheers of Fuck Joe Biden for a cheer of Let's Go Brandon for one of the drivers, Brandon Brown. Mistook. Of course, she mistook. She misheard it, don't you know? Alright, and with that, we're going to be done with news, but the last thing that we always do on a Tuesday is read what's trending on Twitter. So, of course, we're going to come back and check that out today. See what it is that the people think that, or the people on Twitter, I should say, think that we should be talking about. And it's always interesting to see what's coming up with this. So, over to the trending tab we go. Number 1, trend today. March 1st marks the beginning of Women's History Month. A time to celebrate and honor the achievements and contributions of women to society. Okay. Don't care. I like the women that I like, and I don't like the ones that I don't like. That's it. Alright, number 2 trend for the day. Fat Tuesday. Mardi Gras, or Fat Tuesday, refers to the carnival celebrations of the day before Ash Wednesday, which marks the beginning of Lent. And now, it looks like New Orleans is opening. Is Fat Tuesday today, or is it next week? Let's actually have a look. 1 year after the pandemic forced New Orleans to all but cancel its famous carnival, Mardi Gras celebrations are making a comeback, breaking Chesky reports. Celebrate Fat Tuesday with Paskies in Chicago. Do you have a Fat Tuesday tradition? These are from the Detroit neighborhood of Hamtramck. I believe that is going to be today, isn't it? Jerry Nadler hears that it's Fat Tuesday and thinks it's a day about him. Federalist Muskrat says, every day is Fat Tuesday if you're fat. Well, unfortunately, I'm there right now. So, yeah, it appears that today is Fat Tuesday. Oh. Mardi Gras, Nebraska. I like that one. Happy Fat Tuesday. I don't think the cows are going to give you the beads. It'd be kind of funny if one of them reared up and showed her tits. But there we go off of that. Alright, what else do we have? Tuesday Vibe, we skip. Funimation So something is happening in the anime community. Here's every show coming to Crunchyroll after the Funimation merge. So apparently the two big anime companies have merged. I don't know. There's only one, maybe two animes that I've ever really seen, so I can't really comment a lot on this. I could go get on the Discord call and get Seawall in here, and you guys will be enthralled for an hour as he explains to you how all this works. I can't do that because unfortunately I don't know. I know about Sailor Moon and Cowboy Bebop, and that's it. I'm not a good resource about this. And the Pokemon anime, but that's American. That's Western. But apparently the merger is there. Number 4. Wordle 255. People try to guess today's 5-letter word in 6 tries or fewer in the brain teaser Wordle, which I actually looked into and tried, and they don't give you a clue to start from, which I think is weird. So I don't know. I might try doing it again, but every week that seems to be one of the top trends is Wordle. And number 6 and number 7 are the same. Well, the same idea concept of the State of the Union. But, of course, a trend is starting up, and Twitter's going to do whatever they can to shut it down here. Hashtag Slur of the Union is the actual 5th trend of the day. Donaldo Trumpo, Papi Trumpo, tweets out, Buenos dias to everyone excepto that pisochito who will mumble his way through his Slur of the Union tonight. Vince Langman says the hashtag Slur of the Union is going to embarrass America once again in a time when strength is needed. First Word says hashtag Slur of the Union. They should just turn the teleprompter around and let us read the lies rather than have the dummy read them and garble the lines. And on the other side of it, Don is a con dumbass, because the left can't meme. Slur of the Union, thank God this ass wipe is no longer there. And because he lives rent-free in the head, and this trend is getting hijacked, and there's going to be 70,000 tweets with hashtag Slur of the Union, and 69,100 of them are going to be involving Trump. We get to see some of the stuff that happened before that. Once again, when they put these trends up, I don't know if they understand it. We talked about this last night. When, they talked about the 25th Amendment, or to abolish NATO last week. Under 25th Amendment, it was 50-1. People bitching about the fact that people have mentioned the 25th Amendment versus people who would actually mention the 25th Amendment. 50-1. Abolish NATO was about 25-1. It's a little bit of a slimmer margin, but it was about 25-1. People bitching about people who said hashtag abolish NATO versus people who actually said abolish NATO, and this is going to be the same thing. Hashtag Slur of the Union. You all know Joe Biden has a speech disability, and that I report all posts making fun of his well-known disability that he didn't have until he ran for president, by the way. There is footage of him in the 80s, in the 70s, even as Barack Obama's vice president, where he didn't fuck up his words this bad. I report anybody who makes fun of his well-known disability. He had a speech impediment his entire life, and you should be suspended from Twitter. Really, it disappeared from 1973 on to 2020. And then it mysteriously somehow came back.
Show me the one whose safety deems such destruction.
But there it is. That is your trend of Slur of the Union. And it's getting Streisand affected. Hard. The ratio is a little bit slimmer this time. It's like 5-1, but still. But that's what we have out of here. We gotta head out of here for the day because I gotta go to work. And I should be checking out Dota Dragon Blood apparently, so let's head out of here. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat with us today. Apologize for being a little bit low energy. Once again, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and still staring at the ceiling. It takes a toll on people, especially when you didn't get to bed until 11 the night before. So we got through it. We got through a bunch of the stuff here. We talked about this. We even maybe made some new friends here. So come back and join us, Twitch and D Live only, tonight for the State of the Union with the wonderful KTZed. That's going to be a great time. It's going to be a fun time. And of course, no YouTube because they will slap us off the internet faster than you can imagine. We actually might start off on YouTube just so we can do some advertising because I can switch on the fly on Restream. So I can switch it off at a moment's notice. So we might start out there just for discussion. But yeah, no YouTube through the majority of the speech. Come back and join us for that. Otherwise, be back here tomorrow as we do some review of this and probably some more Ukraine as well. And we will see you then. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.